Hi, my name is Kit Bell. Join me as I explore the beauty of botanical prints created with the gel plate and transform them into captivating mixed media paintings. This is the first in a series of 8 videos covering my current process. It is about how I got here. Additional videos will cover the stash. What is it and where did it come from? Printing the stash, a demonstration of how I use the gel plate. Demo results, a better look at some of the papers created in the previous video. Paper selection, how do I go about selecting papers for the next piece of work? Foundation pieces, what goes on first? Building up layers, and then finally adding paint. For years, I felt very comfortable being a landscape painter. When I got tired of painting trees on canvas, I would change up the media. Or I would paint birds for a while. But I always came back to landscapes. I like quiet, calm places, and that's what I painted. But comfortable isn't always good. For me, painting landscapes became less inspiring and more automatic. And then with the pandemic, I lost my way. I'm very sure some of you felt the same. Uncertainty and isolation. I found it very hard to create, and landscapes were not drawing me the way they used to. Searching for a way to restart my path, I remembered my interest in printmaking from my time at art school. And I started a new journey. This journey started in 2021 and still continues. I set aside painting on canvas. It gave me time to think about the things from the past which lit a spark but never had a chance to ignite. I created some complex stencils on my computer and used my Cricut machine to cut the stencils out of Duralar, which is similar to acetate. I used florals as the subject matter because I'm really not very interested in flowers, and I felt that gave me more freedom to experiment. In this first example, I loosely painted the branches and berries in watercolor on Yupo. If you've ever tried painting on Yupo, you know that the watercolor just tends to run all over the place. Once it was dry, I put my stencil over top and thinly scraped acrylic gel through it. That protected the watercolor under the gel. Once that was dry, I rinsed off the excess watercolor. The result is one that I could not have created in any other way. The substrate for this example is Yupo, covered with black gesso. Then I put a stencil over it and scraped watercolor ground through it. It's also known as absorbent ground. I then used the watercolor on those areas. And then finally, I put the stencil over it again and scraped acrylic gel through it to protect the watercolor. Looking for a way to use my new techniques on watercolor paper, I used a stencil and my gel plate to print the dark blue background for this work. Then I added the watercolor and protected the watercolor with gel scraped through the stencil. Gradually, I started to consider the prints as more of an end product and less as a step along the way, and I started to experiment with branches and birds. But I was having trouble sizing up my work. I was limited to the size of my gel plate. Of course, I got a larger plate, but still limited as to what I could do. Then I got the idea of printing my images onto art quality tissue and collaging them to a larger support. I painted the lake and the sky on this 20 by 20 inch canvas. I then printed all of the rest of the pieces, mountains, middle ground, and foreground. These were printed on tissue and then applied to the canvas. I cut a very detailed tree stencil in two 12-inch by 22-inch pieces and printed it on 4 pieces of tissue. Then came the tricky and perilous task of collaging on the big tree tissues. The result is a very unique piece. I added some gloss gel through the tree stencils to add some textural interest. At this point, I was starting to print botanicals directly using the gel plate. I loved the sinuous shapes. Simultaneously, a keen interest in geometrics was finally getting an outlet. I admire artists who have been able to incorporate geometric abstracts into their representational painting. I had attempted to go in that direction with my landscapes, but with no success. Now I found I could offset the lyrical botanical prints that I had been playing with a geometrically driven background. In a way, I was putting my 2 favorite art styles, Art Deco and Art Nouveau, together. Having used the translucent material Duralar in creating stencils and stamps, it seemed like a natural next step was to print on that material, utilizing both sides of it to add depth and visual complexity. The result is my Georganic series of monotypes, each completely unique. This series started in the fall of 2022, and there are around 40 monotypes in the series at present. I have also created some monotypes which don't quite fit into the Georganic series, but are a series I've dubbed Other Worlds. Wherever you find art, you find inspiration. And these days, one of the sources is social media. I started to follow other artists who used a gel plate as part of their process. Although there is plenty of stuff posted that would fall into the craft category, there are also some artists who are creating some amazingly beautiful, unique artworks. Several of them were participating as instructors in the 2023 Gel Printer Summit, so I signed up for that. The wide variety of techniques presented was amazing, and although I didn't feel like reproducing any of these lessons, I started to incorporate some of the techniques and ideas into my work. That spawned my current work. Sometimes I think that the world puts you where you need to be, and you just need to pay attention. When I was creating the Georganic series, I would use tissue to lift off the background ink to get the plate to the state that I wanted to actually be able to print on the Duralar. I kept these tissues as some of them were very interesting to me. That was the start of the stash. I have a huge quantity of tissues to draw from for new work. Deciding which tissues to use is a very enjoyable part of the process. I collage multiple layers and then use paint to visually modify and add complexity. This work is a direct offshoot of the Georganics prints that I did before. It still utilizes botanical and geometric shapes, just in a different way. So that brings me to the current work I'm creating and will be sharing with you in this video series. Each is unique, but with common elements which tie them together. I've used text from old books, both for the texture of the text and for the geometric shape of the pieces. which plants were used changes. I have run out of some of my favorites, and I'm eagerly awaiting for summer. The color palettes change, some more colorful and some based on a quieter, more neutral color scheme. They are challenging to create, often requiring me to fire up the gel plate and print something specific a work needs. But I am enjoying the process thoroughly, and it gets me into the studio every day. I hope you will enjoy this exploration. The next video in the series is the stash. It is about how I use the gel plate to create the collage tissues that I use for my mixed media pieces. Subscribe to my channel and join our creative community. Feel free to drop a comment if you have any questions or ideas that you'd like to share. Thanks for watching.